Recently, I've been noticing a trend in most movies, TV shows, and commercials I've been watching. They're really pushing the idea of the film look and what it means to have the film look in your project. Specifically in this video, I'm going to be taking a deep dive into one of the most notable features of the film look, and I'm talking about grain. What does it mean to have grain in your image these days? Because these days, almost everything has a bit of grain in it. I mean, it's everywhere. But what is grain? Where does it come from? Where does that look come from? And why do people seem to like it so much more now, more than ever in the digital age? Let's dive right into it. Grain in an image goes back to the days of film where filmmakers, they shot everything on film. And the amount of grain is directly related to how much light is hitting the film. The silver highlights on film react by changing the color and the appearance and the texture when exposed to light for a certain period of time. They react differently depending on what film stock is used, how it's processed, in what way the scene is lit, and a number of different variable conditions that we can't exactly predict. Also, depending on the type of film being used, the amount of grain varies. For example, there's more grain in 8mm than in 16mm, than in 35mm, than in 70mm, and the type of grain is completely different. The process of film is one that continues to intrigue me, and one that definitely deserves a much deeper dive than anything that I can explain to you right now. I'm going to leave a link down in the comment section, down in the description. I'm going to link videos, articles, thesis papers that I found when I was doing research on what grain is. Take a look, and while you're down there, feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. Back when everything was shot on film, grain was an everyday part of the filmmaking experience. In fact, people used to want to take out that grain from the images because filmmakers wanted that smooth digital image that we seem to have perfected in today's digital world. I know it's weird, right? We're all moving back to the film days. It's like a repeating cycle, and having grain is one of the main things that filmmakers point to when they want that filmic look. And of course, there's different aspects of the film look. There's halation, there's gate weave, there's blur, there's light leaks, and there's different imperfections that come depending on the film stock, depending on the camera, and depending on everything that goes into creating film. But why do people seem to like grain? Why do people seem to like the film look so much? And I really can't explain it to you why people like grain or why people like the film look in general. I can only speak for myself and from my experiences working with different people on different projects. And the main reason is because it adds something different. It adds that texture to the image, and it creates a feeling of nostalgia. These days, filmmakers are shooting on film now more than ever. Filmmakers are in love with that nostalgic look, and they want to do more. There's more film emulation, there's more shooting on 16, 35, and even 8mm than I've seen in the past couple of years. I remember watching season 2 of one of my new favorite shows, Euphoria, and I'm like, I watched season 1 and season 2 looks completely different. Did they change the camera? Did they change the colorist? Did they change something? After doing a deep dive into it, I found that they shot on film. They shot on 16mm Equipent. In fact, they had to get the film stock specially made by Kodak.
We had reached out to Kodak to see if they could remake Equipent for us because we both loved that film stock. And they ended up, converting their factory in order to remake Equipent for 35. It just looks absolutely beautiful.
In watching this season, I was completely blown away because I just love the way the film looks on the image. I love the way the skin tones look. I love the way the lights look. And it's given me a newfound love for this show. It's given me a newfound love for film. And I'm just like going crazy watching this. I'm just like, damn, this stuff looks so good. Films not shot on film have different ways to emulate film, and especially emulate grain. Emulation in the digital age can be complicated because there's really no way to emulate the grain structure and patterns of grain. In fact, when it comes to grain, there isn't an exact way to properly emulate grain in a digital image because film grain and textures is completely unpredictable. and each grain in the film image is completely different, and any form of digital emulation of that grain uses some sort of predictive analytics and can only give you what they think is going to look like it was shot on film. Now, how do you go about adding grain to your image, to your film? There are a multitude of ways where you can go about adding grain to your image, and I'm going to talk about 3 ways right now. The first way is by getting some sort of overlay video structure that you can download online. There's different sites, different people that sell 8mm, 60mm, 35mm grain overlays that you can download and put over your video layer in your editing software. This is not my favorite way to do it, but this is one way you can do it yourself. Another way is to use the inbuilt grain structure in your editing software of choice. I personally use DaVinci Resolve, and the inbuilt grain plugin, OFX plugin that you can use in DaVinci Resolve is actually really good. It's what I use for all my videos, and you can use it as an overlay. You can use it in so many different ways, and there's so many different types of grain structures that you can add to your image when it comes to working with DaVinci Resolve. Then the external plugins like Dehancer, Video Village, Filmbox, Film Convert, and also Live Grain that allow you to add grain in multitude of ways. These are things that have been developed by people much smarter than me. They've spent hours and hours, they've spent time doing research, they've spent time doing so much calculations into what grain could look like depending on the image, depending on how it was shot, depending on what camera you used. They've done the research, they sell a product, you can buy the product. It's a little bit expensive depending on the one you choose to buy, but it's definitely worth the money. I've tried using some of these different plugins and they really work well, especially Live Grain. Live Grain is one that's used on so many big motion picture productions to add the real feeling of grain to your image. So check them out and you can use whatever one you feel comfortable with. Finally, if you haven't figured it out by now, I love grain. I love the film look. I love everything that goes into it. I shoot everything and I add grain to it. I add texture to it. I add halation. I add everything that I can to get that film look because I love film. I want to shoot on film. I want people to shoot everything in film. But I know we can't because like film is expensive, but those are my thoughts on it. I love everything with it. I love the texture it adds. I love the feeling it gives to the image, and it just gives something else that digital doesn't have. So we can shoot digital and give it a film look, or we can shoot film and have film if you have the money for that. But those are my feelings about it. What are your thoughts about it? What do you think about grain? What do you think about the film look in general? And as I said, I'm going to be doing a much deeper dive into the film look in future videos. So if this is something you're interested in, please make sure you hit that like button and also subscribe to my channel, as this goes a very long way to making sure I produce more content like this. Until next time, make sure you stay safe, make sure you stay coloring, and I'll see you in the next video, man. Peace.